Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we visit the rumor mill to grind some rumor grist into rumor flour so we can bake some rumor bread. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, including, unbelievably, rumors of new Nintendo hardware. And then on Thursday, it's part one of our Ranking the Mario series. But Mark, in the meantime, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you doing? We're recording remotely today.
We're recording remotely today because I'm a little under the weather. I've got some kind of cold or something. I don't have COVID. I tested for COVID for the first time in 6 months, maybe longer.
Did you remember to shove it up there really far?
I shoved it up there so far,
yeah,
Mark.
there we go.
I wanted to prove that I was very tough and that I could shove it all the way up there.
There is no better way to prove that you're tough. Yes. I defy anybody to find a better way to prove that you're tough than self-administer. Yes, exactly. Another bit of being sick is we ordered ramen, right? So ordering a soup, and we got delivery from Silver Lake Ramen, one of my favorite ramen places, and they have instructions on their takeout ramen where it's microwave the broth and then pour it back in, because they come separate, the broth and the stuff that goes in it. Mark, how long do you think it suggests you microwave the broth for? 30 seconds?
5 minutes.
Oh, that's okay. My husband loves soup, even when it's a gajillion degrees outside. He's
right.
Let's have really hot soup. He loves soup, and he does not want his soup to be anything less than boiling. So those instructions must be for him, because that is how he wants it. That's how hot he wants his soup.
How do you even handle it at that point?
I'm not able to.
5 minutes?
I'm not able to. I'm the type of person that's I'm totally like a little kid where I'm blowing on my soup for 3 minutes and I'm ooh, it's too hot. Too hot for me. I put it in the microwave for 1.5 minutes. That seems like a good compromise. That seems great.
Right. And it was hot. Anyway, Mark, if people would like to support us, they can go to patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society, where they can check out everything that we have to offer there. If you are supporting us at the 8-bit or 16-bit levels, you have access to our monthly mini-series episodes. And Mark, we are about to release the first episode of a brand new mini-series.
Oh my gosh, that's right. This Friday, the first episode of NCS Goes Broadway will be live, where we will be talking about the musical Chicago.
The episode goes up. I don't know that it's live. Right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
The episode will be live in the sense that it is not dead.
Posted to that. Right. Yes. Saying that it's live. I don't know. I just want everyone to know it's recorded. It's already
pre-recorded. But it was pre-recorded live. Everybody knows what we mean.
That's right. Live to tape. There we go. But it's we're very excited about it. The first musical that we're talking about, I believe, Mark, you just mentioned, is Chicago, and we had a great time talking about it. So I hope that you have a good time listening to us talk about it. We play a bunch of clips from the show, and a couple other songs as well. So check it out. We also have a Discord, and if you would like to get into that Discord, you can email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. And we will send you an invitation. If you request an invitation and I send you a link and it expires, don't be shy. Email us back and say, hey, that link expired. I will be happy to send you a second one. All right, Mark, are you ready to talk about what we've been playing this week?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, first thing I want to start off with is I mentioned Dr. Fetus's Mean Meat Machine
last week as a game that I had downloaded but not really spent any time with yet. And I feel bad because I undersold it last week. I said that it was a Puyo Puyo like game, or like a Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine like game. But occasionally there are like buzzsaws and stuff on the puzzle boards, which is true. But the buzzsaws appear in the puzzle board in a way that is like recreates the sort of gameplay mechanic of Super Meat Boy, where you are tasked with these like incredibly difficult challenges that require like intensely precise timing, and the only reason you can pull it off is that the game lets you respawn like immediately. So it is effectively and faithfully both a Puyo Puyo and a Super Meat Boy game, and I'm so impressed with this like confluence of game design elements, and I'm really enjoying. And I regret the name, and that I have to say it again: Dr. Fetus's Mean Meat Machine.
That sounds really cool, actually, or a really cool idea. It sounds too intense for me, but the fact that they are kind of incorporating what makes Super Meat Boy into this sort of like Puyo Puyo game, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's $10. So it's an affordable game if you're into. I think you have to be into Puyo in some capacity. But like if you like that sort of like try fail, that like super quick turnover of Meat Boy, I think you would find Dr. Fetus's Mean Meat Machine to be a good time.
I picked up Everybody 1-2 Switch, but I have not opened it and I have not played it. But like previous, so when it was announced and Nintendo's kind of dumped it and it's only $30 and all that kind of stuff, I feel like it has a reputation. If you were clued in to kind of like the saga of Everybody 1-2 Switch, which we've talked about on this show before, where apparently the playtesters hated it, Nintendo didn't know what to do with it, I think the expectation was that it was going to be like a really embarrassing disaster. But from everything that I've read from people who have played it and from previews and everything, it seems fine. It seems like the reason why it's $30 is that it's smaller than 1-2 Switch. So it has like less mini games to choose from, just kind of like a more a simpler package. And I wonder if what happened is maybe they just cut a bunch of mini games that like play tested really poorly, and so it's just like a smaller package now. So I don't know. I think next time we get together we should try it out. But
we did have plans to play it before recording tonight. But again, this is just another thing we can blame on whatever I'm experiencing right now. I'm sick, so we didn't have a chance to play Everybody 1-2 Switch.
That's right. So we'll have to try it out another time. I did actually watch some gameplay videos of Everybody 1-2 Switch, and to me it just seems like more 1-2 Switch with Horace, who's like the name of the horse host, kind of like doing some hosty things in between games.
Can you describe the horse's personality?
I mean, just kind of like enthusiastic. It's an enthusiastic horse.
Okay. All right. Well, just like I wish he could be in the pantheon of like Nintendo host personalities, like Rusty Slugger, like the Badge Arcade Rabbit.
Right.
But I don't think just enthusiasm is gonna do it. Like, I'm interested to spend some time with the game, see what Horace is like, and see if he actually belongs on our three-face Mount Rushmore of Nintendo hosts.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of seems like, again, in my mind, I was like, oh, this is gonna be like such a huge disaster, and it doesn't seem like it. It just seems bland and kind of boring. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like
which is a like classic Nintendo disaster, right? Of like parts of it are fun, but mostly it's boring. It works really well, but like is just bad. Like that's a Nintendo disaster. That's what they look like.
Yeah, and I wonder how much beforehand we were like, I bought it physically, right? Because it was like, is Nintendo going to be embarrassed by this? Are they going to release it and then never talk about it again? And I think that could very well be true, but I don't know that it'll go up there with like weird Nintendo, like we were talking about before.
Interesting. Yeah.
But you know,
I mean, but whatever. I don't feel bad for rubbernecking at it. Like I got my copy on Friday afternoon as well, so I'm excited for us to try it out at some point.
Well, today I kind of fell into a little bit of a Tears of the Kingdom hole. I intended to play for just a short amount of time and ended up playing for like 5 hours or something like that.
You fool. Why would you ever set out to play it for a little bit of time?
I know, especially, and it was total classic Tears of the Kingdom where I was like, this is what I'm going to go do. I'm going to go do this thing right now. And then I did everything but that thing until like the end of my play session when I was like, all right, I should go finish the thing I set out to do. But so I do feel like I've realized I've put in about 70 hours into the game. I have maybe 95 shrines now. I have, like I've done all the temples. I have done all of the labyrinths. I collected all the tears, which I know that you have done, or like, like all the memories or whatever. And
do you have the Master Sword?
Yes. And I feel
very good.
I feel like the way that I kind of stepped into it worked really well. From like a storytelling perspective, because I did it's so weird to talk about this game because like I don't know how much you've experienced. We've done like we're pretty free with spoilers at this point, but like basically I did one of the main like part of the main story task that opens up after you do all 4 of the like regional phenomenon or whatever. So you do that, and then like you go back to Pura, and there's like the next thing that you do. And I did that, and so kind of like learned more about like the deal with the Zelda sightings around Hyrule. And then after I did that, I finished the tiers, and then the final tier that you get opens up like this other cutscene that kind of shows you Zelda's current state. And that's where you get the Master Sword. And it all worked so well together. Like, getting the Master Sword, you had mentioned how, like, awesome it was. And I thought it was so beautiful. I completely agree. It was amazing. Like, I'm...
Well, and so true to the, like, mechanics of the game, too, right? Like, both in terms of, like, you got to get high and you have to explore.
Yeah.
I don't think that gives too much away. But yeah, no, it constantly impresses me how much the game does what it does through the language of the game itself and not in other ways. But that's Mark, I have not finished the 4th phenomenon yet, so I have not triggered that bit after it yet.
Oh, okay, got it. Well, then I'm glad I didn't spoil it because it's kind of a like it's interesting. It all like plays together really well. But I do feel like even though there's still so much for me to do, like I have not like finished the Yiga clan quest. There's so much in the depths that I haven't explored yet. Like that map.
Those depths, man. My God.
I'm wondering if maybe I just spend a day or two just like going through the depth. But like I do feel like even though there's still so much left in the game that I haven't like there are still side quests I want to do. Like I want to open up all the Great Fairies. I haven't finished that yet. And there's like other stuff like that I want to do, but I do feel like my time with the game is like coming to an end. I can kind of like feel that happening where like just like from a story perspective things are kind of beginning to like come together and wrap up, and I also just like it's not that I'm not enjoying my time with it. Like again, today I meant to play for like an hour, and there was just so many other things that I wanted to like go explore and do that I hadn't done yet. But I don't know, I just feel like that's kind of like the sense I'm getting right now with my experience with the game.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I also, I still need to. I've just I'm on the approach to the water temple at the moment,
And today, I spent like 2 hours playing. Where my goal was like before I head into the water temple, I wanted a magic staff, so I wanted to like hunt down a wizrobe and kill it, so I could pop an opal in that thing and turn it into a water rod. And I left like that area with Prince Sidon and like just screwed around for 2 hours, and eventually picked up a magic rod and was like, oh yeah, this is what I set out to do. But I was like exploring the depths and like getting zonite and increasing my battery and all that stuff, which I don't really. I don't have like a battery appetite where I'm like I need more battery. But it is something that like I've just finally wrapped my head around like the system of upgrading it, and like where to do all the various things that you need to do that. So it's always on my mind. So like every time I go into the depths, I'm like I'm gonna mine some zonite. I'm gonna go to the abandoned mine. I'm gonna convert it into this stuff, and then I'm gonna take it to this other guy and convert it into battery parts. And so that's been a fun little like mini quest that I have within Zelda right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't like I've upgraded my battery once or twice, but it's just been so long since I spent a lot of time in the depths. Oh, I finally felled my first Gleeok,
Hey,
which was it was the lightning one.
The was it the one that's like flying around?
Yeah, so it's like up
Okay.
in the like Hebra, I think, like the
Yeah.
snowy area.
Yep.
Because you encounter it as part of one of like the Zelda sighting quests.
Yeah, the one with the golden horse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That was my first Gleeok too.
that was a ton of fun. It also made me realize I have not run into a Lionel yet in this game. So there's still so much more that and like
They're all underground, Mark. They're all
Oh,
underground.
are they?
I think so.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think I've encountered one on the surface.
Well, because I also want to figure out what's going on with the Deku tree, but it's just so there's so much left to do.
Wait, so have you been in the Lost Woods yet?
No.
See, okay. Well, so that's how I got to the Master Sword, is through a quest given to me in the Lost Woods.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. No, that is not how I got to the Master Sword.
I got to the Master Sword before I finished all the memories.
Oh. Yeah, that is not my experience at all.
I love this game. I love it. It's so cool.
Yeah.
But to your point about like feeling like you're wrapping up, and this is actually what I started to say when I instead diverted and talked about something else, which is the experience of playing Tears of the Kingdom. So it's fine. I also like I sort of want my experience to be heading to a close now. I'm excited about Pikmin 4 coming up. I picked up Street Fighter 6 over the weekend because we had a good time playing it at Connor's party on Friday night. And so like I'm ready for other games to like weasel their way into my brain space, which is quicker than we moved on from Breath of the Wild. I was trying to figure out how long we played Breath of the Wild in the first place. So I went back and like looked, because there is now a record of ourselves in the weeks after the release of the Switch and Breath of the Wild. And we were playing that game for like 3 or 4 months pretty regularly, where it was just like that was the first game on our list of games that we were talking about having played. And so I do think that we'll be putting this one to bed a little bit quicker than Breath of the Wild, but I'm not really sure why that is, unless it's just there was nothing else out on Switch at that time.
Yeah, that kind of I've been thinking more and more about how I compare Tears of the Kingdom to Breath of the Wild. And I think, and I need to go actually like look at my Switch. Oh, I hope when I change Switches that it retained how long I played Breath of the Wild for. It must have, right? There's no reason they wouldn't save that.
If you start Breath of the Wild again, then it'll put it up in the in the most recent game, because otherwise it like kicks it off after like 10.
That makes sense.
But it remembers how long.
Yeah, so because I want to go back and like actually see how many hours I put into it. But I know that it's more than I put into Tears of the Kingdom. And I feel like at this moment, like Tears of the Kingdom is an amazing game. Like 10 out of 10, no question. Maybe arguably a better game than Breath of the Wild, but I think my play experience of Breath of the Wild was more of uh like more memorable is not really the right word, but more impactful, I think, just because it was so new.
Yeah.
And so I think for me that's partly why I may be I mean it'll be like 2 months, so Tears of the Kingdom still took up a lot of my life, but um yeah, I feel like some of the newness is not there with Tears of the Kingdom, and so I don't feel the
Yeah.
need to like do everything in the way that I felt it with Breath of the Wild, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I also wonder, like, part of that, like, concept of newness, like, there's the opposite happening too, where, like, we look back on our time with Breath of the Wild as this, like, amazing, magical thing. I wonder a year from now how we'll look back on our time with Tears of the Kingdom, right? Like,
Yeah, totally.
it's the Zelda thing that, like, the reception to Zelda games in their immediate release very seldom, echoes what it is a couple years later. And so, yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how we feel about this game the rest of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Anything else we want to talk about that we've been playing? I mentioned Street Fighter 6. Mark, I picked it up on Sunday morning, and I went right into playing matches online. I was like, World Tour mode, I'll get to you. I just want to play the game, and have been having a ton of fun getting rolled online, and then occasionally holding my own. But yeah, I'm back. I'm back on Street Fighter.
Who are you playing as like your main character?
So my main right now is Marisa, the gigantic woman, and she's a ton of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like you're saying, Connor's Party this weekend was the first time that I've really seen that game in action, and it is such aesthetically such a really cool game.
Yeah, and it feels very good. Like it feels like snappy, and a lot of that carries over to online too, which I'm very impressed with. Mark, we both continue to play Pikmin Bloom. I think we'll talk more about Pikmin Bloom in a little bit, and all things Pikmin later on in the news. I think let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
I don't know what to call out here. I don't feel like there's. I mean, here, actually, I got one. On Thursday,
Okay.
July 6th, Arcade Archives is releasing Pole Position. And just give it up for the Archives folks, because they continue to just, week after week, put out new releases.
And there's nothing wrong with Pole Position. Like, that's a fun one. But yeah, good point. There's not a whole lot coming out this week that I kind of care about at all.
Yeah, or even recognize the name of.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, Mark, let's close this segment out. Which brings us to a regular segment on our show. It is time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance, 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, tonight, because it is the 4th of July on the release of this episode, we're talking about fireworks displays. How do you feel generally? Broad strokes, how do you feel about fireworks?
I think broad strokes, I like them. I'm into it. Yeah.
At this point in my life, I'm like over it. I don't. I feel like there are a time, and it's not. I guess it's not just at this point in my life, but it's like I want fireworks only in the like. You go to a baseball game and there are fireworks afterwards. You're at Disneyland and there are fireworks at night. I'm interested in a fireworks display. I'm not interested in like people setting off fireworks.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Do you remember during like lockdown in LA when there were just fireworks all the time?
Yeah, like all night long.
Yeah. I don't really understand the connection. Maybe everyone was just being like stir crazy, but yeah, there were just fireworks going off constantly.
I mean, it was part lockdown. It was part like, protests and stuff. So like there was just like a sense of unrest. And then it was like, yeah, sure. Okay. So there are also explosions all night long.
I agree with you. Like, I don't really like lighting fireworks all that much. Like, I don't have a desire to like do my own fireworks display, but I do like a good. I've liked theme parks all my life, and so as like a kid, I would want to reproduce those in more my own version of them, like of like a theme park firework display in my backyard. So I remember multiple times like setting up like a little like boombox like stereo, playing some music, and then
when you wish
exactly
upon a
100%, and
star.
then like talking my parents into letting me buy a box of fireworks, and then putting them on like a like a pool floaty, lighting it and like pushing it out into the middle of the pool or something like that to try to capture the experience. So like it's always so yeah, I like them. The thing I don't like as I get older is like crowds. And it's hard to see a good fireworks display somewhere where it's not crowded.
Crowded, yeah. See, that's kind of why I like I mean, not that a baseball game isn't crowded, but like a baseball game with fireworks afterwards, you can watch them from the comfort of your seat that you've been sitting in the whole time.
You're not like jostling for position.
You are not jostling for position. There was a in my hometown of Kenosha, Wisconsin. The fireworks were always shot out over Lake Michigan, so people would like throw down like picnic blankets and stuff, and like that's nice. But then also like I remember getting home from that was always like a nightmare. I guess and looking back on it, like I'm sure it wasn't that hard. It took us probably like 10 minutes to walk back to the car. We had to park so far away. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't living in California and like experiencing the like drought conditions that we usually experience. And the fact that fireworks are illegal in the state is like. I don't know, has like turned me off to them completely. I'm just like, yeah, no more fireworks. We don't need them.
Oh yeah, I you put some fireworks to a good soundtrack, and I'm a sucker for it.
Like Firework by Katy Perry. There are no rhymes in that song. It drives me nuts. Mark, how do you make the fireworks trigger in Super Mario Brothers?
To this day, I don't think I could tell you. I know it has something to do with like finishing the level at a certain time, or with certain numbers
score?
in the time. Yeah, something like that.
I've never had it explained to me in a way that didn't sound like someone was like paranoid, like a paranoid numerologist.
Does this break our sacred vow of not talking about Nintendo during 433?
I'm sick, Mark. What do you want from me? What's the closest you've ever been to a fireworks display?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. On purpose, on accident, like during, like I said, like during COVID, people were shooting them off the roof of the building next to me. So very close.
That's a great point. That's the timer. So we'll never know how close I've been. But we were accompanied today by a timer on my phone. Okay, Mark, let's get into the news.
Okay, so we are probably a ways away from new Nintendo hardware being revealed, right? But
yes,
the rumors are beginning, and rumors are suggesting that at least one development studio has received a dev kit for the successor to the Switch.
Wow.
Now, before we get into details of this, I just want to remind ourselves that before the Switch OLED model was revealed, and there were the expectation, I would say, is that the OLED was going to include a more powerful graphics chip. There were rumors that developers had like dev kits for a more powerful Switch, like a Switch Pro.
Yes.
And that, now, I guess it still seems very possible, because like Bloomberg and other places were reporting about the OLED having, like an upgraded hardware. like upgraded graphics capabilities, and they were right about like all the other specs except for that. So it still seems possible that that was the plan, and that
Yes.
Nintendo pivoted away from that because of like chip shortages and just kind of like the crazy video game or supply chain stuff, but also the Switch took off in 2020, and so
Right. And this is totally the narrative that I buy into. I don't know if this is like our official NCS party line, but like that for me is what happened, right? That whatever the OLED was originally pitched as was going to be a stronger piece of hardware, a mid-generation update, and then they got to a point where they were like, oh, we can't actually produce that at a cost that makes sense for us to sell it at, but we can do this like increased size screen, OLED screen, all like the little improvements of the OLED version, and people will still buy it, and people did still buy it. Mark, you and I are both proud OLED edition Switch owners.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, all of that is just to say that we've heard of dev kits for new Nintendo hardware being in the hands of developers previously, and it didn't actually turn out to be like a Switch successor. But
now let's have fun. Let's have fun.
Okay. So, roughly like 3 years ago, somebody on Twitter with the handle Nash Weedle mentioned rumors of the Metroid series returning, and they heard that it was going to be like a 2D Metroid game, and that turned out to be true, right? Metroid Dread turned out to be real. So fast forward to 2023, and Nash Weedle has once again posted some interesting info on Twitter, saying that at least one dev kit for the Switch, for like the next Nintendo hardware, Switch successor, whatever you want to call it, is out there. And I believe that this person is Spanish, from Spain, and so they're saying that like a Spanish studio has it, which makes people wonder, Mercury Steam, the developers of 2D Metroid, right? Like they leaked the 2D Metroid. Now they're saying a Spanish game studio has the dev kit for the next Nintendo hardware. It would make sense to me that it would be Mercury Steam in that case.
Yeah, those are two pins on the corkboard that are easily connected with one piece of yarn.
And then a Spanish YouTuber's video that this Nash Weedle person liked claims that the dev kit is controlled with a Pro controller and not the real controllers, because Nintendo doesn't want the controllers to leak under any circumstances.
Interesting. I think we can also probably couple this with the recent statements from was it Furukawa, who said that what the Nintendo accounts are going to be. This has been spun into meaning things that it doesn't actually mean, but that whatever the next Nintendo hardware is, they will still use the existing Nintendo accounts. And like a lot of people have kind of projected onto that it means that that's like a smooth transition, or that like your library will continue from one piece of hardware to the next, when all we really know is that they intend to use the same Nintendo account system on whatever comes next.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this on Discord a little bit. I've got to say, for me personally, if it's anything less than basically full backwards compatibility, I'll be disappointed. Like, I think that would be bad if it isn't fully backwards compatible with the Switch.
Yeah. Well, and like Nintendo traditionally is pretty good about backwards compatibility, right? Like on the console side, as soon as from GameCube to Wii, there's backwards compatibility. Wii to Wii U, and on the handheld side, every single console has had backwards compatibility to at least the previous generation. But this would be the first time they'd be doing this in a like totally digital library environment. And the changeover to the Switch was in no way backwards compatible, right? Like that was the first time that Nintendo was like, no, hard stop. So like the most recent example is no backwards compatibility. All previous examples, at least one generation of backwards compatibility. So what does that mean? Like, what is the likelihood that we are going to get like total will we have to engage a special like Switch mode in order to play these games, or will we really just be able to continue to play like our Nintendo Switch Online games, or Super Mario Odyssey or whatever, on whatever comes next?
Yeah, it totally, like, the hard cutoff from Wii U to Switch makes a certain amount of sense. One, they were going from optical discs to these like game carts, and plus, like, it was all new, um, kind of like architecture. So it makes sense that it would be a hard cutoff. I would be
Yeah.
really disappointed if you have to engage like a Switch mode or something like that. To me, this
So
is
would
one
I.
area that I really feel like it should work, at least how I understand it to work, for like PlayStation 5 or, like the Xbox Series consoles, where it just kind of works for
Yeah.
Xbox One games and PlayStation 4 games. Like, you don't have to jump through any hoops, in order for it to work.
Right. And I know that like this just is the standard now, right? But like there are so many other places where you can look at like this just is the standard and like Nintendo doesn't meet it. So I don't know. I'm worried.
I mean, yeah, I think you're right to be a little bit nervous,
Yeah.
because it feels rare that Nintendo just does like the obvious thing. But I think it is encouraging to me how much they talk about the importance of Nintendo accounts.
Yeah.
I think they know how important that is, and hopefully, they have that kind of like spin-off company or whatever that they created with DNA,
Yeah.
and that's focused, like, part of its mission is just uh support for Nintendo accounts. And so I those are all hopeful signs to me that they are taking it seriously. But yeah, what it'll actually end up being, I think, who knows at this point. And I also think that we are beginning to see smoke for new Nintendo hardware, but I think we are so early in it. Like, it hasn't gathered enough momentum yet for us to be anywhere near an announcement.
Mark, geez, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago at this point, I predicted no new Switch until 2025. I mean, that's starting to feel like might be right.
I think you could be. I think you could be really close, like right on the cusp. It would not surprise me at this point that it's like holiday 2024
Yeah.
that
Yep.
like new Nintendo hardware is ready. Although, like, the Switch launch ended up being so successful in March, I wonder if they will try that again. Not necessarily March 2024, maybe March 2025, who knows.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it's a good question of when they're, because like holiday is when the other guys go for sure, right? Like that's when both PlayStation and Xbox, every 7 years, put out their new systems in November. But yeah, so I don't know if Nintendo just wants to stay out of the way of that or what.
Well, I mean, I feel like it makes sense to launch in holiday because that's when everybody's doing like end of year shopping. But also, it unless you're able to stockpile a significant amount of consoles, it seems like you're better off kind of launching
Yeah.
early and then building up, steam for the holidays itself. But yeah, who knows? It just
Yeah,
feels
and
like
then and then by the holidays, then you've got like a Pokemon game and a Mario game and a Zelda game and ARMS.
right. So yeah, it feels like we're in early days for like new Nintendo hardware talk, but it does feel like, those pieces are beginning to come together in a way that they hadn't for the past few years.
We can no longer ignore them.
Last week, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission and Microsoft met in court for a short trial to consider the FTC's request for an injunction stopping Microsoft from finalizing its deal to acquire Activision Blizzard. So I think the like date that that Activision and Microsoft, when they agreed to the merger, like agreed to, was that it would be finalized by like July 18th or something like that. And so, the FTC has said that they're going to sue like Microsoft and to stop it from happening. But that trial doesn't start until later this year, like the end of summer or something. And so they filed for this preliminary injunction because basically their argument is, hey, if they finalize their merger, and then we go to trial in August, it's going to be basically impossible to like unwind the merger after the fact.
Right.
So they had like a 1-week trial to try to get a judge to grant a preliminary injunction, and the results of that trial have not been announced. I think in the next like couple of weeks, the judge is supposed to issue their ruling. But we did learn like a surprising amount about the business of Microsoft, Sony, and a little bit about Nintendo. Some of this was through documents that were supposed to be redacted, but weren't redacted very well, and so kind of like leaks. Like we found out how much the Horizon sequel that's on Sony hardware like cost. It was like $200 million and took like 5 years to make or something like that.
Yeah.
But here's like some of the Nintendo stuff from it. So one of the big points of the trial have been around Call of Duty and whether Call of Duty is exceptional, like whether it is withholding Call of Duty would make Microsoft a monopoly if they controlled Call of Duty. And so as part of that, the Activision Blizzard CEO, Bobby Kotick, I actually don't know how you say his last name.
I think Kotick, yeah.
Was on the stand and was asked about Call of Duty on Switch, to which he said, quote, "I made a bad judgment. When I had seen the prototype for the Switch, it was different than when I saw the prototype for the Wii. I thought the Wii was the most extraordinary video game system ever made. When I saw the prototypes for Switch, I was concerned because they were trying to accomplish a lot with the console that also had a portable capability. I didn't think it was going to be wildly successful. It's probably the second most successful video game system of all time, so it was a bad decision on my part."
Yeah, I mean, third most successful behind the DS, but yeah.
And I feel like, for somebody like Activision Blizzard, like at a certain point, the strategy is kind of set, and they have so many people working on Call of Duty 365 days a year, every year, just trying to get like the next game out, that it never I don't think it ever made sense for them to try to incorporate like a Switch version into that grind. You know what I mean? Like it's something that feels like they would have had to plan for it from the outset.
The ship is too big. Like when you're turning like a big cruise line ship, you got to start your turn like an hour before it actually happens, and this is just an even bigger ship doing a more complicated turn. So yeah, it takes a long time to adjust those plans.
Of course, a few months ago, in an attempt to avoid regulatory action, Microsoft signed an agreement with Nintendo saying that they would bring Call of Duty to Nintendo platforms for 10 years if the Activision merger goes through. So there was also discussion in the trial of like, how would you do that? Is it even possible? And to which the answer to both of those, according to Microsoft and Activision, are yes, if we plan for it.
Right, which, I mean, does make sense, right? Like, yes, if we plan for it, that does make sense. It may mean, like, having to build two, like, totally separate builds of the thing, but, like, that could still technically... Hey, the Arkham games are coming to Switch, so...
That's right, we still get FIFA, like, Legacy Edition.
There you go.
So, this is... Yeah, not related to Call of Duty, but just interesting that in his testimony, the head of PlayStation, Jim Ryan, said that Sony doesn't view Nintendo as a direct competitor, which I thought was just interesting. Makes sense.
Yeah, it sort of makes sense. It's like kind of ignoring the like the greater, like, people only have so much like time, attention, and money to spend on gaming, and if they spend money on Nintendo, they maybe aren't spending that money on PlayStation.
I mean,
but I do get like the specific of like that's not the same arms race. They can't compete with Nintendo in that way, but they do compete with them like in the abstract.
Totally. And also, PlayStation does not want this Microsoft merger to go through. And so it's in his best interest to say that they don't consider Nintendo a direct competitor, because that's the narrative that the FTC is that was the FTC's analysis as well. But yeah, I agree in that, it like the same reason Netflix has kind of dabbled with games is that you're just competing for people's time and attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then finally, we also learned through court documents that Microsoft had quite a few companies and developers on its acquisition list at some point. So in 2020, we know that they were talking about acquiring Sega. We know they were talking about acquiring From Software, Bungie. They talked about bringing Bungie back into the fold, Zynga, and IO Interactive, the developers of Hitman. And not on that document that leaked, or I guess that wasn't redacted properly, so not on the watch list, but also in court documents, we learned that Microsoft also considered acquiring Square Enix.
I mean, all of this is, these are like the conversation level, like that they're watching them, right? Like this wasn't that they were taking like active action to try to acquire these companies so much as they were like all part of potential strategies moving forward, right?
So I don't think we know how far it went. I think you're right at like a high level. Like we have no idea how far into talks they got, but we know through some of the documents that like Phil Spencer was, talking to the CFO of Microsoft being like, "Hey, I want to approach these people." So, so it at least got to that level where they were actually talking about like the logistics and like, "Hey, is it okay if we start these talks?"
Yeah, that's just so funny because like I think about like at work when like I have an idea and then we talk about it and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, like oh that was just like a flight of fancy, or like yeah, it would be cool maybe someday. And I wonder how much of like these specific developers are all part of that. Like yeah, that would be one way that we could go, and then they buy Bethesda instead.
Yeah, totally.
Mark, you skipped a little bit about Minecraft.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We learned that Switch is the console that Minecraft grosses the most on. It's like 4 times what Xbox generates, and PlayStation generates 2 times what Xbox generates, and so it's like and then Switch generates 2 times what PlayStation does. So it all works out to be 4 times what the Xbox generates.
Is that just like a numbers game of like how many of the systems are out in the wild? Because like there are like 120 something million Switches out there in the world, and like about a third of that number of PlayStation 5s. So like, although I guess there are PlayStation 4s as well. So and there's a ton of those. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But I mean, it does kind of make sense that like the audience for Minecraft is generally speaking younger. The audience for the Switch is generally speaking younger. So that all makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, tracks for me as well. The Lego Super Mario line is adding a Larry and Morton's Airships expansion set launching on August 1st. With the set, you can build 2 airships, plus it includes a Larry figure, a Morton figure, and a Goomba figure. And I think the Goomba has like a little pirate hat.
Very funny, very cute. I do believe at some point we said we're going to stop talking about these Lego Mario sets.
It's a light news week.
It's a light news week, but also it's like it's funny how much they're drilling into like individual Koopa kids getting their own sets. I thought the box for this was really funny because there's like a graphic of the Lego Mario, but he's like kind of like translucent, like see-through, like he looks like a ghost. Really just to indicate that Mario is not included in this set.
Right. Also, I think in our promise or decision to not talk about these until we started talking about them today, I think we didn't talk about that there's a bunch of Donkey Kong sets also releasing August 1st. So like a Treehouse expansion set, Diddy Kong's Minecart Ride expansion set, Dixie Kong's Jungle Jam, and Rambi the Rhino expansion set. So
I wonder what the Super Mario Brothers movie has done for the sales of the Lego sets. That feels like a pretty straight line, right?
Yeah, totally. I would be
Although
super
no
interested.
Koopa kids in the movie. Look, I don't need to keep going back to complaining about the Super Mario Brothers movie, but why were there no Koopa kids in there?
You got to save something for the sequel.
That's a great point.
Uh,
Rise of the Koopa Kids.
speaking of, not really, but today I saw at Universal Studios Japan, there's like a summertime kind of like show that they're doing that involves like water and like spraying water on the audience and stuff like that. But as part of it, they have a Bowser Jr. like mascot character that is part of the show and is like, jumping around and dancing and everything. And it is well documented on the show that I do not like Bowser Jr.
We don't like Bowser Jr.
But it is really cute, and I
right.
would not be upset. I know that at Universal Studios Hollywood, like the Super Nintendo world has been just completely packed, and so they don't need anything right now to attract more people. But if they ever get Chunky Toad over there and they get like Bowser Jr., that would be fun. More Nintendo characters over there, please.
Well, what do you think about them if they could incorporate the Bowser Jr. mascot character into the Waterworld stunt show spectacular?
I would love that. I would become a Universal Studios Hollywood season pass holder. I think if they did that,
It'd be so easy to do.
It would be. You just like get him up on one of those ledges, and the Mariner like shoots him, and he falls down into the water.
Come on.
He would of course be a villain. I think in the world of Waterworld, Bowser Jr.
he would have
is
to
a smoker. Is that what they're called?
I think so, yeah. Interesting, Dennis Hopper plays the Deacon, the villain in the movie, also plays Bowser in Super Mario Brothers, the movie from 1993. It's all connected.
There's a demo. Okay, now we're getting into Pikmin talk, like we promised earlier. So there's a demo for Pikmin 4 on the Nintendo eShop right now, and if you complete the demo, you earn the Pikmin 4 Ochi rider costume for your like avatar or your Mii, I guess it's a Mii in Pikmin Bloom.
Which is awesome because it means you're just riding around on Ochi.
Yeah, and Ochi's super cute.
Ochi's super cute. I saw that some of our listeners in the Discord have done this. I'm excited to do this. I think it's really cool that they are deploying all of these like outside of Pikmin 4 things. That like are making the different like little corners of the Pikmin universe talk to each other.
Yeah, it's one of the rare times that they've done that. Like,
what's going on?
It's Miyamoto. He's putting his thumb on the scale. He's
got to be.
He's all in on.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say he's all in on Pikmin Bloom.
Yeah. Well, but like, just remember that like, Animal Crossing New Horizons was like the biggest game Nintendo had in like forever, and they had and currently have a iPhone game that like never had any cross functionality with it.
Yeah, they there's something about Pikmin. I think Miyamoto just loves it. I think it's like a series that's near and dear to his heart. Speaking of which, Niantic, the developer of Pokemon Go and Pikmin Bloom and other games, just announced last week that they are laying off a bunch of employees and shuttering some of their games. And when I saw that, I was like scanning through the article real quick to see, because
Control F Pikmin Bloom.
Exactly. Like Pikmin Bloom is not being shut down, but I am just so curious how Pikmin Bloom is doing. Because I go to some places, like I was, like at some airports the last couple of weeks, and there's flowers everywhere. But then in my own neighborhood, there aren't really any. I just have no sense of like how many people are playing this game.
Yeah, it's tough to know.
Also, a Pikmin 4 themed Tetris Maximus Cup is coming to Tetris 99 this weekend. Starting July 7th and ending on July 10th. Players will have the opportunity to play like the new theme, and as always, if you earn 100 coins over the weekend, you'll be able to unlock that theme permanently. And this is crazy to me on a number of levels. One, this just again just tells you how much Nintendo is all in on Pikmin right now, and I'm guessing it's Miyamoto's doing, because previously we get like new themes for new releases like 3 months after the game actually is out. But this time we're getting it ahead of time.
Yeah, which like is the way you would do this, right? Like this seems like the marketing machine working the way it's supposed to, and not like, you know, the Fire Emblem Engage theme coming out in like March or whatever.
Yeah, and we never got a Tears of the Kingdom one.
Yeah,
Nintendo cares
I mean, we
about
still could, but yeah.
Nintendo cares about Pikmin 4 more than they care about Tears of the Kingdom. It's official.
Well, I mean, what do you think are their expectations for this? Like, do they need Pikmin 4? They can't possibly need Pikmin 4 to like sell super well, right? Like, they just put out Tears of the Kingdom.
I think the expectation is that it will perform better than the Pikmin 3 remake on Switch, which was the best
performing,
the best-selling Pikmin game ever. And so yeah, I don't know, maybe they're hoping for like actually Luigi's Mansion. I was gonna say Luigi's Mansion 3 size hit, but that I think has sold over 10 million copies.
Yeah,
so maybe not that big, but I don't know, 5 million.
Yeah, like it's impossible to know. It's impossible to know like what would constitute like a failure for them, and like how much a failure would hurt them at this point. It seems like it wouldn't at all. Like Nintendo's having such a good year.
Feels like that all those extra $10 they got for Tears of the Kingdom copies would soften the blow. But yeah, I mean, it'll just be interesting to see because Pikmin has always been like a okay performer, you know, selling like 1 million copies or so, but it's never been a blockbuster series. So it will be interesting to see how all this promotion helps it.
Yeah, but and like, you know, Switch is the generation for like it is both the Switch sells a lot and it is people buy games on it, right? Like the attach rate on Switch is huge. So like a Kirby game, like a good Kirby game can reliably sell 1 million copies. A good Kirby game on Switch sells like 3 million copies. So, you know, it's I'm very interested to see, and especially like I don't know if like people are just like back into the idea of like playing their Switch again because of Tears of the Kingdom. If they're like, okay, what am I going to play next on this thing? And bam, here's Pikmin 4. If it can just fill that space.
Finally, Disney's Speedstorm, which is the Disney racing game that was released a couple of months ago in early access, but always planned to be like a free-to-play game down the line, has confirmed when that changeover to free-to-play will happen, and it'll be on September 28th of this year. So maybe at that point, I will check it out, get that Figment character if it's still around.
Ooh, get that Figment character. It's so weird to me that like in early access it was something you had to pay for, but then when in its full release that's when it becomes free. That feels backwards to me.
Yeah, it's not a beta test, it's an early access.
I don't understand how free-to-play games work, Mark. And never mind that I play Pikmin Bloom every day. All right, let's get out of the news. That is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Please join our Discord. Just send us an email and we will send you an invitation. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.